Good morning. Happy Sunday. I'm Greg, and welcome to the Daily Bible Wrap Up. Going through the readings for the year. We're in August now, done more than half of the Bible. If you've not been with us since the beginning, you can always go back and check out some of the early podcast episodes when I was doing this weekly instead of daily. For a variety of reasons, it makes a lot more sense to do this daily. So we're supposed to be in the word daily anyway, right? So it kind of matches. Today's readings that we're going to summarize, and as always, I'll have some comment on Psalm 91, 9 through 16, 1 Corinthians 2, 6 through 16, and 1 Chronicles 22, 2 through 23. So Psalm 91, 9 through 16 expands upon the readings from yesterday about trusting in God. I'll read for you verse 9. If you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you, no plague will come near your home. In computer programming, there is something called if then else statement. It's a conditional command. If something is true, then follow this code of instructions. Otherwise, or else, follow this other code or instructions. So a couple of things to unpack here. Remember, the verse is if you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you, no plague will come near your home. So first, since that if is noted, if the condition is not true, we are to expect a different result, different code, if you will. God says that these protections are conditional, not universal. They require us to do something, which leads to the second thing to unpack. We have to make the choice. Here is that little nugget of faith again, the point where we have to start from. We have to first choose, and we will receive God's protection, else something different will be the outcome. That's so many parts of the Bible really boil down to that one very simple. I could say it in two words. Choose faith. Old Testament, we're in 1 Corinthians 2, 6:16. It's short, but it speaks to the need to be with other believers to discover and understand the depth of faith. And this reading begins with, yet when I am among mature believers, I do speak with words of wisdom, but not in the kind of wisdom that belongs to this world or to the rulers of this world who are soon forgotten. No, the wisdom we speak of is the mystery of God. Now, I meet every week, so long as scheduling permits, with a men's group at my church. It's essentially an hour of deep Bible and faith study, as well as, maybe more importantly, fellowship and discussion on how to be effective disciples. That is actually, after all, our calling. It is our charge. I've been with this group in this church for only a year, but these early morning weekly meetings have without a doubt deepened my understanding of my faith. And I encourage all to be with believers and to discuss the faith, as Paul says, seeking the wisdom of the Spirit. And I need to stress here, with believers. Verse 14, Paul says, but people who aren't spiritual cannot receive these truths from God's Spirit. It all sounds foolish to them, and they can't understand it, for only those who are spiritual can understand what the Spirit means. Choose faith. Old Testament, we pick up the story in 1 Chronicles 22, verse 2. This is all about preparing to build the temple of God. As David said, since Solomon was still, quote, young and inexperienced, that, quote, since the temple to be built for the Lord must be a magnificent structure, famous and glorious throughout the world, I will begin making preparations for it now. Now note that David lost out on the privilege of actually building the temple because he had, quote, shed so much blood in God's sight. So he instructs Solomon and the leaders on building the temple and advises them to, quote, seek the Lord your God with all your heart and soul. That's verse 19. Continuing on in 1 Chronicles 23, plans to build the temple continue, beginning with the Levite duties detailed, divided into 3 clans named after the sons of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The major descendants of them are listed. One had to be 20 years old to qualify to serve in the house of the Lord. Their work would be to assist the priests, the descendants of Aaron. So some interesting items going on here in the readings. I remember after I got done with the notes here, I was all happy that I was able to tell my wife that I could actually use a computer programming analogy with today's readings. In some ways, perhaps this is like a simulation. If-then statements, if-then-else statements. Regardless, we have to make the choice. We have to choose faith. So I'll leave that with you today. That's all. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. Start at a brand new week. Hopefully your weekend is going well and that you will always choose faith. Take care.